Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07. Thanks for tuning in here as we embark upon hour two of our 4-hour extravaganza, also known as O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 6:35, candidate for U.S. Senate in Maryland, John Myrick. 7:05, Pat Harity, Fairfax County Supervisor. 7:35, John Gonzalez, Channel 7, latest on some ideas to fix the crime problem. Just turn on the lights, maybe. 8:05, Representative Corey Mills is going to join us to talk about his latest endeavors to rescue abandoned Americans, abandoned by the Biden administration. Also, by the way, we'll get his reaction to that Afghan withdrawal hearing earlier this week. Then at 8:35, Dina Griffith. She's on the Loudoun County School Board. I'm Larry O'Connor, and she is Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning. I almost said happy, but we'll save that for tomorrow.
That's right. It's a special Thursday appearance here. So the hearing began yesterday with Oversight Chairman James Comer pointing out the elephant that wasn't in the room, or the better put, jackass that wasn't in the room. I mean that as a Democrat, of course, not in any sort of derogatory means. Hunter Biden. Sure you did. Hunter Biden refused to appear under his request for appearance. And to be clear, remember, Hunter Biden was first subpoenaed to testify behind closed doors, and he grandstanded and refused. Remember, he walked in and made a big show of sitting in the front row, and he said, no, yes, I want my public hearing. I want the cameras on. I want people to see this. Then he was given his opportunity to be seen, and he didn't show up. Why? Because he'd be sitting next to Tony Bobulinski and Devin Archer and other partners in his racketeering scheme to sell access to the vice presidency, Joe Biden, and make millions of dollars. And, of course, then to discuss what he did with those millions of dollars, which can't be spoken in polite company. Mr. Comer pointed out Mr. Biden's absence.
I want to touch on the fact about the absent seat in the middle. Hunter Biden has chosen not to attend today's proceedings. I've given Mr. Biden exactly what he asked for before his deposition. It's clear that Hunter Biden knows his testimony would not withstand public scrutiny. Joe Biden has not been truthful about his participation in schemes to sell access and influence. And today's witnesses will show the American people a side of the story that the president and his allies on this side of the aisle are eager to hide.
They're eager to hide it, and they've been eagerly lying about it. We talk a lot about Congressman Comer, the chairman of Oversight, and Congressman Jordan, the chairman of Judiciary. But there's a third congressman who's been doing yeoman's work, the chairman of Ways and Means, Representative Jason Smith of Missouri. He's the one who brought out the IRS whistleblowers, protected their identity, and again, methodically went through the process of getting the evidence out. And he summed up quite a bit of it here.
We have testimony from multiple witnesses that Joe Biden was the brand. He knew what his son and brother were doing and did nothing to stop it. That alone makes him complicit in a scheme to make money off of his public service. But he was not just complicit. He was, as one of today's witnesses has testified, an enabler of this activity. The evidence of the two IRS whistleblowers who came to the Ways and Means Committee has been affirmed by volumes of material provided to Congress, by the testimony of others, and even by the Department of Justice, who finally brought charges against Hunter Biden that mirror those called for by the IRS investigators.
That's right. He was the brand. He played along with it. And honestly, after hearing the testimony and seeing all the evidence, Patrice, and we're going to get to more of it, especially from Tony Bobulinski, sort of the star witness here.
Yeah.
You can reach only one of two conclusions, or I guess you could reach both of these conclusions. The first is that Joe Biden was a complete willing participant in all of these schemes. He knew full well what his brother and his son were doing in terms of selling access. He deliberately guided his motorcade as vice president to detour over to Georgetown. No mean feat, by the way. Walk into a restaurant with Secret Service detail, pose for pictures, meet people. He appeared on the speakerphone of his son's phone when he was having meetings with Russians and Ukrainians, said, take care of my boy, glad handing. Obviously, proving that Hunter did in fact have access to the White House by participating in those phone calls, always demonstrating it in front of these clients. He knew full well what was going on, and he and his family profited from that participation. You either believe that, which makes him a criminal, or you believe that he was completely clueless, a total moron, and unaware of the basics of the very ethics laws that he helped pass in his 50 years in the United States Senate and as vice president. He's either a complete clueless moron and imbecile,
Yes.
or he's a criminal. Now,
Yes.
I have room for both here, Patrice, but that's really where we are.
Well, it is. The problem is you need a handful of Republicans who have already said that they, if there was an impeachment vote of any kind of President Biden, that they wouldn't support it. And so, unless you can convince those folks to change their tune or to see what you just laid out, then it's
Yeah.
you just have two camps of people, and we have a lot of information. We have certainly seen a lot from this impeachment inquiry, but it's the next step, and whether there is enough support in Congress, particularly within the Republican field, to take that next step. And unfortunately, I'd have to say there isn't.
I'm a little suspicious of a Republican or Democrat who decides that they're not going to vote for something literally before they've seen or heard the evidence. But
Well,
sure,
that's true.
And
That's true.
one must
But that's what we
wonder:
got.
are these people who put cordiality and good glad-handing politics ahead of the rule of the law? Are these people who or are these people who actually want the laws to stay exactly where they are and unenforced so that they can profit and benefit from it themselves? Here's some of that evidence. Tony Bobulinski.
Yet the same people preaching this mantra know better. They continue to lie directly to the American people without hesitation and remorse. Rep. Dan Goldman and Jamie Raskin, both lawyers, and Mr. Goldman, a former prosecutor with the SDNY from New York, will continue to lie today in this hearing and then go straight to the media to tell more lies. Hunter Biden's defense attorney, Abbe Lowell, weaponizes letters to Congress to try to smear my name
Mr.
and
Chairman.
misstate the cold hard facts.
This is when Jamie Raskin, the ranking member, the congressman
Yes.
from about 3 blocks away from where I'm sitting right now, he decided he wanted to break precedent and interrupt a witness's opening statement because he was called a liar. Well, they checked the rules because they have rules of cordiality here about calling each other liars. Congressmen are not supposed to call each other liars, but there's nothing against a witness calling a congressman
Ooh,
liar.
that's
As
right.
well, there shouldn't be, because that's our God-given right here. And the fact that Jamie Raskin says, "How dare you call me a liar, sir? How dare you interrupt a taxpayer and a citizen? It's our right to call you whatever we want, and if you don't like it, you shouldn't have raised your hand to do this gig." Jamie Raskin. Maybe people wouldn't call you a liar if you, told the truth more often. In a moment, I want you to hear this exchange with James Comer, some questions and answers about Joe Biden's involvement, as well as with Congressman Jim Jordan. And we'll see if any of this goes anywhere.
Okay.
But first, it's 6:15.
News is brought to you by New Look Home Design.
Later this morning on the Chris Plant Show, Hunter Biden ignores his congressional subpoena. Will he go to prison like Peter Navarro? 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Mr. Bobulinski, who's the big guy? Joe Biden. Are you sure about that? Because when
Jordan, Joe Biden?
You're sure?
I'm 1,000% sure.
Because when Hunter Biden did his deposition under oath, he said, "I don't know who it is," even though he was copied on an email that said H will hold 10% for the big guy. You sure it's the big guy is Joe Biden?
1,000%, and there's other text messages that back that up, that the brave whistleblowers, Shapley and Ziegler, have produced, not from my phones, not from my BlackBerry that I took screenshots from. They took them from subpoenas directly from Apple's iCloud.
The big guy is Joe Biden. 10% for the big guy. The big guy is all over the emails and text messages. The name is never used, but the big guy is Joe Biden. This is how these criminal enterprises work. Tony Bobulinski also responded to the questions from Jim Jordan about whether Joe Biden was involved.
Mr. Bobulinski, was Joe Biden involved with any of your business dealings with Hunter Biden and James Biden? Was Joe Biden involved in his family's attempts to sell their access to him? You set out a form You said.
By the way, Tony Bobulinski, his microphone is turned off for some reason, but you can hear him in the background in the room saying, yes, he was, yes, he was, yes, he was. He also laid out how the operation worked.
Well, I think it outlines how the Bidens operated, not specifically just with CFC. You have Galanis here testifying and numerous other witnesses that have given you tremendous amount of evidence that outline they worked to obfuscate it, create layers of obstruction. That's the reason why Rob Walker was getting sent millions of dollars instead of Hunter Biden directly. That's the reason why Devin Archer was receiving millions of dollars instead of going to Hunter directly. You guys have a mountain of evidence that stacks high and answers that question on how they obfuscated. They lived in a world of plausible deniability.
By the way, those two people that he just mentioned, they're serving time for their crimes. It's amazing how Hunter Biden's business partners all end up in jail. And this guy,
And
Tony
somehow
Bobulinski,
he hasn't, yeah.
the Democrats all call this guy a crook, a fraud, and a liar. And the one thing he has in common with Devin Archer and the others is that he's also a business partner. So one must suspect that the only people Hunter Biden decides to do business with are all crooks and liars who go to jail, except Hunter Biden is pure and pristine. Well, again, and
funny how that works.
What Bobulinski just laid out there is how they lie and they create these layers of deception, so the money is moving everywhere except where it ends up going. That's how these criminal enterprises work. And by the way, that's why RICO crimes were first put on the statute, so that it would be easier to go after mob bosses under racketeering charges. Enter Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her questioning. Listen.
I have a quick question. Simple. Is it your testimony today that you personally witnessed President Joe Biden commit a crime?
I believe the fact that he was sitting with me while I was putting together a business
Did you
deal,
witness the president commit a crime? Is it your testimony today?
Yes.
And what crime have you witnessed?
How much time do I have to go through it?
It is simple. You name the crime. Did you watch him steal something?
Corruption statutes, RICO and conspiracy.
What is it? What is the crime, sir? Specifically.
You asked me to answer the question. I answered the question.
No.
RICO, you're obviously not familiar with. Corruption
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. RICO is not a crime. It is a category. What is the
It's a category of crimes that you're then charged
You
under
have charges.
a long 100
You
list
have
of
charges. Sir, please
Want me to name the exact statute
Sir,
under RICO?
yes.
Well, it's funny. In this committee room, everyone's not here. There's over 18
All right, sir. I reclaim my
lawyers
time.
that went to law school.
I
I'll leave
reclaim
it
my
up to
time.
you guys
okay,
to
thank
define
you,
the
sir. I
statute
reclaim my
under
time.
RICO.
Clearly, what we are seeing here today is a continuation of the 15-month saga of the Republican majority lost in the desert. Impeachment 101. The majority party, or whomever is raising impeachment, must accuse the president of a high crime, a specific high crime or misdemeanor. I would like to submit to the record HRES 918, the House resolution to open this impeachment inquiry.
Without objection to order.
This resolution does not outline a high crime or misdemeanor. It's not here.
There's no crime, Patrice.
Well, if that's the case, then can't Fani Willis now drop RICO charges against President Trump?
That is a fascinating dichotomy, isn't it? They are literally using RICO. They are accusing Donald Trump and his advisors of RICO crimes, and that is exactly what the prosecution in Fulton County is pursuing. And yet, apparently, according to AOC...
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. RICO is not a crime. It is a category.
Can we just turn that into a clip that we play over and over again? Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I'm about to demonstrate my brilliance by asking you a dumb question.
RICO is not a crime. It is a category.
Or as the Babylon Bee pointed out, RICO is actually the name of AOC's delivery guy.
Suave.
Maybe that's who she was talking about. RICO's not a crime. He's on my playlist.
Suave.
That's the RICO she's talking about. She gets confused. Leave her alone.
RICO is not a crime.
Honestly, and she is the brightest and best of all of them.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, listen, they've been trying so hard to undermine all of this evidence against President Biden and his son, and this is the best that they can do. The other best that they've done coming out of this hearing that I heard was just a new narrative, which is just recycled again. By the way, Republicans are working with Russia to undermine the presidential elections in support of Trump. That is the other headline takeaway narrative that the left is using. So between no RICO and Russia collusion, we are back at 2020 once again. 2016, 2020, I don't even know at this point.
Yeah. By the way, in case you're wondering, this is exactly what it sounds like in studio when I'm on a riff and a rant and I'm going on and on and on, and it's either Julie or Patrice or Mercedes under their breath. It's
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, it's pretty much that's the. I'm
That is
sorry
what it
about
sounds
that.
like.
Yeah, I know. I apologize.
RICO is not a crime.
Oh, the dumb just hurts my brain. It's 6:24.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:37 on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here on this Thursday morning in your nation's capital. We're going to continue to keep you updated on all news and information. And also, by the way, our hearts go out to those in the Shenandoah Valley and in the environment there dealing with the brush fires. And we've got you in our thoughts and prayers, and we know that the weather conditions are not great right now for those fires, and all of the first responders and firefighters who are doing incredible work out there to try to contain that fire. Thank you. Thank you for that, and be safe, and let's get that under control here. It's the last thing you want to deal with. 7:05, Pat Harity, Fairfax County Supervisor. 7:35, John Gonzalez, Channel 7. 8:05, Representative Corey Mills. And then at 8:35, Dina Griffiths from Loudoun County School Board. I'm Larry O'Connor. That is Patrice Onwuka.
Patrice Rico Onwuka.
Rico Suave Onwuka. That proves that you are not a crime either, Patrice. And one thing we have in common is we're both Maryland voters, and that means we are watching with a keen eye on the Maryland Senate race that is heating up. And joining us right now is one of the candidates who would like the Republican nomination. Welcome to the program, please, Mr. John Myrick. Mr. Myrick, thanks for being here.
Larry, thank you very much for having me on this morning.
Give us a quick thumbnail of who you are and how you got here to the place where you want to be the senator for Marylanders.
Certainly. Well, first off, I'm not a politician. I've been a public servant most of my life. I grew up here in Maryland. I was raised in Harford County. Went to school here. I've raised my family here. I've lived all over the world and in various places, and have come back to Maryland because this is home, obviously, and we chose to come back here. I served as a Harford County Sheriff's Deputy for a few years. I served 23 years in the Air Force Reserve. I'm a highly decorated combat veteran. Retired from the reserves. While I was in the reserves, I was also working as a federal civil servant in the intelligence community. I served there for several decades, various agencies throughout the government. I'm considered a subject matter expert in asymmetric threat for the government. I left there in 2013, started doing federal consulting, and I'm currently a federal contractor with the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency.
So, John, what sets you apart from your field of Republican contenders? And obviously the most recent entrant to the field, former Governor Larry Hogan. What makes you different? Why do you think that voters should look to you?
Well, that's a good question, Patrice. Thank you for asking. Quite frankly, as I said, I'm not a politician. I think career politicians are part of the problem here in America. They get too entrenched and ingrained in looking out for their own positions and self-interest that they've forgotten who they actually work for. I entered the race originally because, quite frankly, I was fed up, and good people can no longer sit back and do nothing and expect things to change. I want to see Maryland prosper. I want to see our nation prosper. I want to support policies that work, and I'm willing to work with anyone, regardless of their political affiliation, to solve these problems that plague America and to make our country back into what it should be, which is the leader of the free world.
You know, I was looking at the last senatorial election we had. This was Chris Van Hollen versus Chris Chafee. And, you know, it wasn't very hotly contested. Chris Van Hollen won by, I think, 30 points, right? But what was interesting is, of the 25 counties in Maryland, Mr. Chafee actually won 14 of them. Van Hollen just won 9. Of course, they were the most populous counties. And he won Montgomery County and Frederick County. But what really stuck out to me when I looked at the results, sir, was that in Prince George's County, Chris Van Hollen won 91% to 9%. And it tells me that Republicans are not doing a very good job going into places like Prince George's County and explaining why our ideas are better. Have you thought about that? Have you approached this race in a way, unlike Republicans in the past, where we can actually walk into uncomfortable neighborhoods and tell the people who live there, there's a better way? Because last I checked, things aren't going great for a lot of families in Prince George's County, but they keep voting the way that sort of reinforces bad policy.
No, you're absolutely right, Larry. And to that point, first off, I'm a Prince George's County resident. I live in Lanham.
So you're one of the 9%. There you go.
Yes, exactly. So I know exactly what you're talking about there. You know, I mean, I've traveled literally from Garrett County to the Eastern Shore, northern Maryland down to St. Mary's during this campaign. I've hit the Baltimore City and 10 of the other counties. I've got the rest of the counties scheduled to have events in the next few weeks. And everywhere I go, one of the things that people keep telling me is obviously border security and the economy. And you're right. When you look at 91%, or a huge margin of victory in places like Prince George's County for Senator Van Hollen last time, yeah, we've done a very poor job explaining to people that there are options out there. You don't have to continue to vote for career politicians, and Marylanders have a tendency to do that. And my question to them is, how's that working out for you? Are you safer? Is it any cheaper to buy gas or groceries? I mean, I go to the grocery store every week, and I watch Prince George's County residents putting food back because they can't afford to buy it. That's ridiculous in the most prosperous nation on the planet. And it's got to change, but it only changes that if you go to the ballot and you make a change.
Well, John, I'm right there with you. I'm right up the street from you in Bowie. And one of the other issues that I think is one of the competing for second to the economy is crime, and tied with immigration, frankly, and sometimes they go together. You've seen what's happening right here in Congress, particularly with this so-called border deal and immigration deal. Do you think that's the right approach, where Republicans in the Senate seem not to want to take up what's actually been passed in the House that could actually stop the influx of illegal migrants at the southern border who filter out to the rest of the country in communities like ours? Is that the right approach, or do you think there's a better one?
Yeah, I honestly, Patrice, I think there's the better approach. The border security bill that was presented to the Senate, had I been a sitting senator, I would have voted against it as well, because it still allowed 5,000 illegal aliens to come across our border each and every day. And I'm not good with math, even despite the fact I have a degree in engineering. However, if you do the math, that's 1.8 million illegal aliens still entering the United States a year. That's an unacceptable number. And there are easier ways. This problem, I believe, was caused by the stroke of a pen by the Biden administration removing the policies that were in place under the executive orders placed there by former President Trump. It can be solved with the stroke of a pen. The Border Patrol agents and CBP agents on the border keep screaming to anyone who will listen. They simply need the policy authorization to enforce our current federal laws. Now, that being said, the immigration problem is much bigger than that. The immigration system has been broken for years. Congress, both House and Senate, have refused to do anything about it. I've got some ideas to fix that, and I'll work with Democrats to make that happen.
To get those ideas, go to johnmyrickforsenate.org, johnmyrickforsenate.org. That's Myrick with a Y. Quickly, your opponent, Larry Hogan, he also wants the nomination. He was on the program earlier this week. He said that he would have voted for that so-called border protection bill coming out of the Senate that the Republicans didn't even allow to go to the floor. In fact, he said that the fact that it didn't pass was the reason he decided to get in the race. Is he wrong?
Yes, quite frankly, I believe he's dead wrong on that. Again, if you're still going to allow 1.8 million illegal aliens to come here, when you have people sitting all over the world who have been waiting 18 to 20 years for legal visas to immigrate to the United States, that's wrong, and that's not a solution. Stopping illegal immigration is the solution, not encouraging it and enforcing it.
All right, we're going to leave it there. We're out of time, but thank you for joining us. I hope there's going to be a debate amongst the Republican nominees before Election Day, primary day.
Well, there's supposed to be one actually tonight. The League of Women Voters is sponsoring a debate up in Baltimore this evening at the New Psalmist Baptist Church that I'll be participating in.
Have all the candidates committed to that?
That I am not.
I haven't seen that either. I'll have to. We'll get that info for our listeners in a moment. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate you joining us.
I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Thanks.
6:46. Let's go to Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. All right, imagine you're walking down a city street. It's 11 p.m. You're walking to your car. Would you rather that street be well lit with street lights, or would you rather it be pitch black and dark?
Is there a choice?
It's not even close, right?
Yeah.
It seems so simple. John Gonzalez, Channel 7, had a report on how the lack of streetlights or streetlight repairs might be contributing to crime.
Police say better visibility and brighter streets are a clear deterrent. Terry Lynch, the CEO of Downtown Cluster of Congregations, sent a letter to the commanding officer stating that he reported the same lights out last year in this. These floodlights and streetlights were out over the weekend when this mass shooting occurred. 2 people killed, 5 others wounded.
So basic, so simple. Again, I keep saying we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. The basics that we have learned over the years in Western civilization to keep order and to enforce law, we're acting like here in D.C. we've just forgotten them. Or, that's the old way of doing things. We've got a new approach and a new idea. I got an idea. How about you just fix the broken lights on the streets and see if that makes a difference?
That would be ideal, but you know what? It's interesting. Apparently, there's a racial element. I've stumbled across an article that makes a correlation between racism and streetlights. It's some sort of subtle thing about the number of streetlights and so on. I think it's garbage. I absolutely, as someone who lived in the city as a single woman in D.C., I needed as many streetlights as possible because honestly, Larry, there were times where people would follow me home in cars in the alleys and on the main roads.
Terrifying.
And that was in daylight or even at night when there were streetlights. Imagine if there were none.
John Gonzalez, the person who put together that report for ABC7, he'll join us at 7:35, and we'll find out if, Patrice, this report that you saw is true.
Yeah.
If it's true that black lights matter. It's 6:53.
Making sense of your world.
Thank you guys for all that you do.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
I listen to you every day.
Making sense of the news.